Hello there, and welcome to this new episode of Backlogged Replays, my thinly veiled excuse for why I'm reviewing games that I've already beaten, on a show all about finishing unbeaten games. Look, here's the thing. I'm not going to do a video game review show and not talk about my favorite games. It's just not going to happen. So, here we are today, and it's Zelda time, baby! This is my all-time favorite video game franchise. I love The Legend of Zelda. And on top of that, I've also been a staunch defender of games that I feel like get a ton of crap, especially when they're actually not that bad, like they're really good games. So while everybody else was whining about how motion controls were the worst, I was busy slicing my way through Skyward Sword back on the Wii with the best motion controls on the system, for sure, easily. Now, we just got this new HD remaster on the Switch, and while the motion controls are optional, I will still be using them, and I can't wait to see how they touch the graphics on this one, gameplay touch-ups. You know, it's supposed to be kind of the definitive version of the Wii Classic that so many people missed out on because they were too busy whining about motion controls. At any rate, today's Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD. Let's not wait any longer. We got a world to save. Let's go. I remember being kind of worried about Skyward Sword when I first heard about it 10 years ago. Oh, I feel the old age settling in right now. Anyway, I, unlike many people, welcomed the addition of motion controls to the series. It was the kind of gameplay I imagined instantly when I heard about the Wii's motion control, and what I pretended Twilight Princess played like on the Wii. No, I was concerned about, well, just about everything else. This was the first Zelda game to make a concentrated effort on shaking up the Zelda formula, which I have always adored at any and all points in my life. Now we have the single biggest departure from said formula with Breath of the Wild, but I'll get into that later on. This was the first step on that journey, and it scared me. This game had a lot of firsts for the series. Some were great, like the motion controls, fight me, the kinda cel-shaded but not quite graphic design, and the most epic soundtrack of the series with full orchestration. Seriously, I think this is the best overall soundtrack in the series, even though there are lots of songs I like better in other games. But other first-time ideas seemed, at first, troubling. The main thing that worried me was the stamina bar. Being able to dash for the first time in 3D Zelda? Cool, I'm down. But limited stamina? I don't know. Limited storage space for non-consumables like shields? Upgradable items and options? I mean, maybe. Now let me double back just a bit here. I wasn't immediately sold on the motion control. Now I visited my local GameStop, which had a demo unit for the Wii at the time, and a demo for the game. I did everything I possibly could on that demo, and found that the motion controls made combat way more thoughtful and difficult. And I loved it! The first boss fight against Girahim really feels like a skill check. If you slash at him the wrong way, he catches your sword between 2 fingers! Wow, what a shock! I've never had to think so hard in a boss fight in Zelda. Really, this game has the best bosses in the series, easily. While the designs don't always stand out, because of the precise nature of the combat controls here, it feels like a proper duel with a lot of bosses, and it feels great to come out on top. So I played the crap out of this game. While it felt straightforward, I get easily overwhelmed when things feel too open. I may never actually finish Skyrim. Oh, but it is in my backlog, so I have to eventually. That said, Skyward Sword didn't actually deviate from the formula all that much. Go to dungeon, complete dungeon, collect thing, and move on. I kinda hated Fi, because she speaks as if your computer could talk to you, and real-life robots have more personality than that. Also, there is some unfortunate repetition of various locations and bosses that gets pretty obnoxious. But the various story elements were really fascinating. All the things we would expect from a Zelda game got their story origins here, and especially the Master Sword. I don't want to spoil too much, but before Breath of the Wild, there was always the 3 pieces of the Triforce, and the 3 characters with fates intertwined vying for the power of said Triforce. And this game explains all of that. That's awesome! Overall, had you asked me at the time, I'd have called this my favorite Zelda. But then, I do that for every Zelda. However, overall, I do think this was an excellent entry to the series, and well worth playing through again. But let's find out if it holds up on the Switch. So right out the gate, this remaster looks awesome. As with many remasters, a few textures didn't age well, shout out to the paper cutout trees. But unlike a lot of the textures, the characters look gorgeous. Since this game has more cutscenes than pretty much any other Zelda, this goes a long way towards improving the quality. The motion controls feel just as good as they did before too, and the music was never going to be less than perfect. As far as remasters go, this one has been handled extremely well. In fact, between this and Mario Galaxy, I want more Wii games on Switch. Please, Nintendo, give me Mario Strikers and Metroid Prime Trilogy, I beg you. The only major quality of life change is being able to skip dialogue, which, given the deadline I set for myself, was simply marvelous. As of writing this, I have yet to spend any real time with the new stick controls they added for the sake of Switch Lite owners, the only other significant change I noticed. Playing through Skyward Sword after the release of Breath of the Wild is a fascinating experience. Skyward Sword was the first game to start making changes to the established formula we know and love that began way back with Link to the Past. I was floored by the amount of Breath of the Wild DNA I found here. It's like meeting your grandfather for the first time. There's plenty of classic ideas here, but you can definitely see the family resemblance. The most obvious link, haha, is that this was the first time Link ever had a stamina bar, and it works almost 100% the same way. Anytime you dash, climb, or use a spin attack, stamina goes down. There's more DNA to be found though. This game introduced the idea of collecting materials to upgrade your gear. Also, while it's not even half as expansive, they did implement some ideas for exploration, like opening up shortcuts through the environment and dropping beacons to help guide you. Arguably, the best reason to play this game is the story. If you're new to the series, I wouldn't actually recommend starting here. This game was made to show where all the story elements we've come to adore in this series began, in a way that is way cooler if you've already played the classics. The force of evil versus the spirit of the hero, with the magical princess caught in the middle, it's all explained here. Special attention is given here to the most iconic item of pretty much any video game ever, the Master Sword. This game also gave Link and Zelda a relationship that was, well, actually a relationship. Granted, it's more friend zone than anything else really, but it's not something that really existed before. Link seldom even knew Zelda personally before. I will leave it there for spoilers' sake, but the story still holds up as among the best in the series. Now, as I write this next paragraph, I'm about halfway through the game. Here's the thing. I'm a huge Zelda fan, love every game in the series, and I still love this game too. But I am deeply saddened to say that some decisions made in this game now feel very dated. First of all, you can't save any time, you have to save at these statues. This isn't a major deal, as there are statues all over, maybe even some new ones, but still. There is one autosave file, but if you got a bunch of folks playing, it seems like it wouldn't work all that well. Also, I miss the proper, fully voiced cutscenes from Breath of the Wild. These cutscenes are really awesome, but having to read through everything being said, even though it feels like they are talking, feels kinda dull. Plus, you have to keep pressing the button to proceed, and they talk a lot. I mean like Kingdom Hearts a lot. Being able to skip through dialogue helps, but it's still just too much. Since this game was on the Wii, they also had to compromise with the exploration elements, and therefore have you revisit areas multiple times. They mix it up pretty good with some new terrain or events each time to keep it fresh, but I did get tired of the same locations. If you haven't played this game yet, each area is unique and very cool, but after several playthroughs, I wanted something different. Plus, several playthroughs gets you lots of practice with the combat. I remember struggling a bit in the original, but even the bosses didn't give me any real trouble this time. A couple last second thoughts I want to cover here. First off, I did go back and spend some time testing out the stick controls. Frankly, they do work, but they feel very unsatisfying compared to the motion controls. In the few hours I tried them, I could never reliably pull off the spin attack or the fatal blow, and the latter is pretty crucial. Also, while much of the game is easy, the last stage of the last fight, that I'm not going to spoil, is still really hard. I used all my health items, lost my shield, barely pulled through with only about 4 hearts left. Another late game fight stressed me out almost as much, and it's really only due to mechanics that exist only for these fights and nowhere else. Might just be me, but the struggle was real here. Lastly, I never, ever want to fight the imprisoned ever again. But I will, because Zelda. So look, the last section was ultra nitpicky, which I hope shows you that I'm trying as hard as I can to look past the nostalgia glasses and fanboy funnels. But I can't help loving this game still. Replaying this has reminded me of one of the things I love most about Zelda. More than almost any other game, Zelda is filled with personality. This is something I would say actually got lost just a little bit in Breath of the Wild. In Breath of the Wild, the world itself is the most memorable. Sure, a couple characters stand out, like the champions and Pyrrha, due to her oddball youth-like appearance, but how many more can you remember? 5, maybe, if you try? There are so many things in Skyward Sword that have literally no reason to be there, but they make the game feel special, even among Zelda. There are tons of little things I could list here, but let me try and give just a couple examples of what I'm talking about. The Bazaar is actually a great location to see a bunch of these little touches, especially since you're there often. Depending on which shop you're visiting, the music in the Bazaar will drastically change its instrumentation, even though the tune itself is the same. So when you visit Gondo the Mechanic, it's heavy on the percussion sound, like a workshop, and the creepy stalker-eyed fortune teller makes it sound Far Eastern and exotic. Also, each shopkeeper gets real huffy when you don't buy anything, really playing the guilt card super hard. Oh, how about Beetle's Air Shop, which has you ring a bell so he can lower a rope for you to be pulled up just to visit him. Then you can sleep in his bed till night to visit his home and learn that his normal speech is more of a weird sort of British accent. The item keeper girl ends up getting a huge awkward crush on you that you have to resolve somehow. Here's one of my favorites. When you visit the Lumpy Pumpkin, you see a piece of heart hanging from the chandelier, but you can't jump to it. So you talk to folks, and they mention ramming the wall might knock it down, so that's what you do. The owner immediately yells at you and demands you speak to him. Okay, yeah, he's mad, but this event starts a whole set of side quests where you work off the money he lost having to replace the chandelier. Then you get another heart piece out of it. Like, it's all so unnecessary, and you could easily just find a hidden heart piece somewhere and do the side quests for other types of rewards. The look on the owner's face here is so priceless. So yeah, the game is small and dated, particularly compared to its console sequel in Breath of the Wild, but there are so many wonderful ideas present here that it really shouldn't be missed. After testing out the button controls a little longer, they're certainly functional. I just don't think they feel all that great. So unless you really can't stand the motion controls, I don't really recommend it. Swinging your arm around feels much more satisfying. So at this point, I've sung many praises and made several little squabbles about Skyward Sword HD. At the end of the day, this game is still great. I love it. It's easily the most colorful and unique version of the Land of Hyrule that we've seen, and it doesn't feel like any other Zelda game. It feels really great. If you're not the biggest Zelda fan, or are new to the series, I will say I don't really recommend starting with this one. It really feels much more special when you know how the Legend of Zelda series operates beforehand. I do think that this is the kind of game that everybody should try at least once. Just try it. Try it with the motion controls, because it's really made for that. But if you come back not really enjoying your time with the game, I can safely say that I do understand that notion. However, for someone like me, being a massive Zelda fan and totally into motion controls, this is a game that I'd say you should at least finish once, and hold on to it. Though definitely want to wait a while before going back. It does get just a little bit too repetitive.